Was the firing of captain of the aircraft carrier justified? Absolutely. And has nothing to do with politics. Watch this video. I'll give you a military version why he was fired. A few days ago, news media were very upset where the Navy Secretary relieved the commander of aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt, basically fired the guy over his whining that he had 100 crew members aboard who tested positive for coronavirus, and he was very concerned about their safety and wanted the public to know. What was wrong with the captain of a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier to announce to the world that he had a problem? Does Chinese military or Russian or North Korean ever disclose their status of the health problems of their military may be having? Of course not, because that's a national security issue. That's not something that the military does. Was Captain whining? Yes, he was. Unfortunately, most people in this country, many recruits included, don't understand actually how military works and what it does and how it does. First thing to understand is that military is not a democracy. You don't get to vote whether you're going to take that hill or you're going to execute this mission or the other mission. Military function by a chain of command. Civilian world functions from the ground up. It starts, for example, presidential election. It starts in the small living room, libraries, meeting places in Iowa in the spring every 4 years, where people gather together and they kind of bouncing around the ideas who should be president, and it starts from the ground up. And we end up with the president. Military functions the opposite way. Military has a board. Every person, every rank, from a sergeant to a captain, major, colonel, general, is appointed from a higher up. You're promoted from a higher up. In the rank of lieutenant, you have your captains a rank above deciding your fate. They're looking over your resume, if you would, and then that's how they decide whether you get promoted or not. So the squadron doesn't pick their squadron leader. Their platoon commander, the regular soldiers do not pick their platoon leaders. Those people were appointed from above. In civilian world, things function from the ground up. Why was the captain fired? He was fired for skipping the chain of command. He went public by emailing 20, 30 people of his friends or whatnot, probably in media, because that's how San Francisco Chronicle, I believe it was, got a hold of the story and published it. So it turns out that basically the captain was whining. Military job is to kill and destroy things. Now, that's not how recruiting is done and how it's sold to young recruits. Most of the young recruits coming in, they think, oh, military is about, it's a GI Bill, it's a free education, it's a come see the world. But it is actually, they teach you, and you'll learn this if you are trained properly, that military is about killing other people, hopefully before they kill you, and destroying things. Why is it not a democracy? Because democracy functions slowly. People get to convince other people to do something or not to do, and then majority rules. So you don't get to vote on, do we take this hill, do we attack this bunker, do we go? No, you execute the mission of people above you who make decisions for you, and they tell you what the mission is, and you have to go execute that. Theodore Roosevelt is one of our 10 active aircraft carrier. It's a nuclear powered aircraft, which means two things. It's powered by 2 nuclear power plants, as well as having a nuclear weapons aboard, which are distributed either with the airplanes or different types of missiles. It has over 5,000 to 6,000 men and airmen that require to run the ship. So it is an important asset. It is meant to project the power, and it's meant to execute the mission when requested. Since World War II, pretty much since the aircraft carriers were being built, our carriers were used in every war that America was engaged, whether that was invasion of Grenada, World War II, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, whatever the mission, aircraft carriers were involved. So what should have this captain done? The proper thing to do is follow the chain of command. He has satellite phone, he has helicopters aboard, including among his 80 of some plus aircraft that he has on the carrier. He could have made a call to his superior commander and say, hey, look, we have a problem. We have about 100 of my sailors have come down, they're positive. We need to quarantine them. We need to test everybody. You fly a helicopter over on land, you get your supply, you quarantine those 100 people, you isolate them, other people on board, they cover their ship, and the mission continues. You don't advertise to your enemy that you're having a health problem aboard one of our carriers. To better understand military, how military is not a democracy and how it's different from a civilian sector, I give you an example from how military treats infidelity. If a CEO of IBM, AT&T, or any other American companies, news is the guy's is unfaithful to his wife, there's infidelity involved, blah, blah, blah. The only people concerned, of course, besides their spouses would be maybe stockholders. How is the stock performing? Is this going to affect on a company? But usually it doesn't. Usually the stock of General Electric or IBM or Boeing doesn't really depend on what happens to the CEO and if a CEO is having an affair. How does the military look at affair? Military looks at it from a standpoint of leadership and how much can you trust to that person. And reasoning kind of goes like this. If this person, let's call him a captain, if he is willing to betray the trust of the most important person in their life, her spouse, can they be trusted with leading the men into battle? Or is there always something in the background that we don't know about this person? Can this person be blackmailed, or can they be entrapped by some kind of relationship, by some kind of spy or some kind of agent that has infiltrated and keeping this captain's company? So from that perspective, military takes infidelity very seriously. There's nothing to do with the sex. It has to do with the trust and ability to lead. And they consider that person that betrays their spouse as the highest level of trust that there is between two individuals. That person cannot be trusted on a battlefield. And a battlefield where people are dying around you is different from how your stock is, if your stock is up or down 3% today. So that is why, keep in mind, from the military perspective, firing this captain was the right thing to do because he failed as a leader. He was a whiner. He was whining and crying baby. He was not a leading his men or women. And we can't have a people in a command like that. That's why he was fired. And remember, Secretary of the Navy has a full power to fire or relieve the commander of his duty, because they're ultimately responsible on the to commander-in-chief, because they can be replaced just as well. Chain of command. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Is the captain of a Navy aircraft carrier a hero, a traitor, or a whiny? A crying baby? I say a crying baby.